It started with a smiler, half-curved, distracted smile Lena wore more for the camera than the moment. Behind her, the rushing silver of Cascade Falls blurred into mist. Her long hair clung to her jacket, wet from the spray. One hand tucked inside her coat pocket, the other shielding her eyes from the sun. Click. Jake took the photo. And that was the last time anyone saw her alive. The hike was a spontaneous trip, or so Jake said. It was the last weekend of September, and the leaves were just beginning to blush gold. 4 of them when Jake, Lena, Tom, and Sasha college kids on borrowed time, pretending midterms didn't exist. They drove 2 hours up to the trailhead, parked the Jeep by a crooked wooden sign that read, "Caution, unmarked paths beyond this point," and hiked the 6 miles to Cascade Falls. They pitched tents near the water, built a fire, laughed Sasha, posted a blurry boomerang of marshmallows and tagged Lena. That post would later become a grave marker of sorts, flooded with comments and heartbreak emojis from strangers who never knew her voice. Jake's story, as told to the police later, was simple. We woke up early. Lena wanted to go see the sunrise from the top of the falls. Just her and me. We were climbing, and she slipped. But there were cracks in his voice, hesitations between words, and a quietness in his eyes that Elaine, Lena's mother, didn't believe for a second. Jake was the first to call 911, his voice frantic. The operator's log noted trembling breathing, rapid speech. We were hiking, and she fell. I tried to grab her, Jesus. I tried. She's gone. I think she hit the rocks. She's gone. By the time search and rescue teams arrived, the river was swollen from last night's rain, murky, merciless. Helicopters combed the banks. Divers plunged into cold black water. Drones circled overhead like birds of prey. But after 2 full days, nothing. Lena was gone. Jake stayed back at the site. Wrapped in a thermal blanket, dirt smeared across his cheek like a bruise. He didn't cry, not until they brought in the dog teams. Then he broke down, sobbing into his hands. Or maybe performing. Some said it felt off. Like he knew he should be grieving, but didn't know how to wear it naturally. By the 3rd day, the other Stone and Sasha had given their statements. They said Jake and Lena had argued the night before. Nothing big, just tension. He was being clingy, Sasha said. She needed space, that's all. Elaine arrived on the 4th day. She didn't cry either. She just stared at the river, like it owed her something. When she asked Jake where he last saw Lena, he pointed toward the edge of the falls. Elaine followed his finger with her eyes. Then she stepped back, shaking her head. She was scared of heights, she whispered. Jake blinked. What? She never stood that close to an edge, not without someone holding her hand. Later that night, the sheriff met Elaine in the ranger station. He spoke softly, as though facts might bruise her more than the truth already had. We haven't found a body. But given the currents and the drop, it's likely she was pulled. Under these things happen, ma'am. Elaine didn't blink. She didn't just fall, he sighed. There's no evidence of foul play. Elaine leaned forward. Not yet. The photo, the one Jake took, made it onto every local news station. The final image of a girl on the verge of vanishing. Online sleuths dissected every pixel. Some thought she looked scared. Others pointed to a shadow behind her shoulder. Debating whether it was a tree or a figure, theories bloomed like weeds. Jake stopped speaking to the press. When reporters came to the dorm, he shut the door. When students whispered behind his back, he kept walking. But every once in a while, someone caught him staring at that photo on his cracked phone screen, his thumb hovering over the delete button, and pulling back in the privacy of her room. Elaine stared at Lena's handwriting in an old birthday card. You always told me the world was beautiful, Mom. I want to believe you. It didn't feel like goodbye. It felt like something unfinished. 2 weeks later, the official report listed Lena's status as presumed dead. Accidental drowning. Elaine didn't attend the college's candlelight vigil. Instead, she visited the river one last time, standing in the same spot Lena had been. She closed her eyes, listened. The water rushed, uncaring. but in the roar of it, she could almost hear a voice. He followed me. She opened her eyes. Nothing there, just mist and memory. But she felt something shift in her chest, a tension, a warning. She took out her phone and stared at the photo, zoomed in there. Behind Lena's smiled Jake's reflection in the lens. His eyes weren't on the viewfinder, they were locked on her neck. The river kept its silence, day after day. Rescue teams combed the Cascade Basin, boots in mud, divers in black wetsuits, dogs pacing the banks. But Lena never surfaced. No torn clothing caught in the branches, no blood on the rocks, no bones, nothing. It was as if the river swallowed her whole and never burped. The official term for it was accidental drowning. Elaine preferred a different one: unfinished business. By week 3, the police packed up. The local news ran a final segment, a montage of Lena's smiling photos, layered with cello music and that one awful line. She vanished, doing what she loved. Elaine threw a glass at the screen. Back at campus, Jake didn't speak much. He dropped his psychology course, cancelled his gym membership, deleted his socials. He moved dorms to Many Eyes, he told the dean. Too many people asking if he was okay. He wasn't. That much was clear. But grief had a way of cloaking guilt in socially acceptable skin. People let him be, except Elaine. Every morning, she stared at the photo of Lena at the waterfall, taped above the kitchen sink. Not the filtered one. The press used the raw, Iris original that Jake had texted to Lena's phone hours before she vanished. Elaine had it now, and she studied it like scripture. Jake's reflection still lingered in the lens, eyes locked on Lena's neck. Elaine circled it in red marker. 2 months after the case went cold, Elaine found herself in Lena's apartment. Her landlord let her in, reluctantly. Sorry again, he muttered, stepping back. I just thought, maybe she'd turn up. Elaine didn't answer. She stepped inside. The place smelled faintly like lavender and ramen seasoning, Lena's signature comfort combo. Her shoes still by the door, a dry plant slumped on the windowsill like a neglected thought. She went through drawers slowly, not like a thief, like a mother looking for evidence her child ever truly lived. Lena's journals sat stacked in a wooden crate beneath her bed. Dozens, all sizes. Elaine flipped through page after page of doodles, affirmations, grocery lists. And then he's watching me sleep again. I told him no. He got quiet, then said, "What if no one ever found you?" I laughed. But now I keep thinking about that spot by the water. Elaine froze. She read the entry again and again. Her fingers went numb. Jake. When she brought the journal to the police. The detective barely blinked. She was probably just venting. You know how kids write when they're dramatic? Elaine's voice was flat. She was 19, not 12. Still, no evidence of a crime, no witnesses, no physical proof. Elaine leaned in, her grief sharpening to a knife edge. You mean no body, right? The detective hesitated. Legally, yes. Then legally, she said, you're useless. By the 4th month, she had memorized Lena's texts, read through every calendar alert, every pinned Pinterest board. That's when she noticed the number. An unsaved contact. Last message received 2 days before the waterfall trip. Still thinking about what you saw. I haven't forgotten. You shouldn't go. Unknown, Lane called it. Number, disconnected. She brought this to the police, too. More shrugging. Could be a spam number, the officer said. She might have blocked someone. It happens. She got it 2 days before the trip. Still, circumstantial. Elaine stared at him for a long time. Then she said quietly, you people only care about daughters who leave bodies behind. Jake, meanwhile, was barely seen. He stopped attending classes. Rumor said he was doing therapy, but his professors said he'd gone past time. Tom and Sasha, friends from the trip, distanced themselves quickly. Sasha deleted every photo of that weekend. Tom transferred schools. Elaine emailed both. No response. So she visited Sasha in person. The girl's eyes were hollow when she opened the door. I'm not supposed to talk about this. Elaine didn't ask permission. She walked inside. Sasha cracked after 20 minutes. They fought. That night, she whispered. Lena and Jake. Not yelling. Just cold, like she'd already decided something. Like what? Sasha hesitated. I think she was going to break up with him. Elaine's throat tightened. She told me she felt trapped. That he followed her sometimes. She even changed her lock code. But she didn't want to start drama. And you didn't say anything? Elaine's voice quivered. Sasha looked down. I didn't know she'd end. I didn't think it'd end like that. Elaine started a corkboard in her living room. Printed out every message, every journal entry. Marked Jake's photo with a pushpin. Drew a red thread from him to Lena's text messages. To Sasha, to the police, to the river. She stared at it for hours. Sometimes, until sunrise. One night, she pulled the journal from beneath the board again. Scanned the last few pages. I've never felt more watched. Sometimes I wonder if Jake loves me, or just wants to own me. If anything happens to me, I hope someone looks past the easy story. Elaine whispered into the quiet. I hear you, baby. On the 6th month, the police issued a final report. Cause of death, presumed drowning. Case, status, closed, suspect list none. Elaine ripped the envelope in half, but that night, as she stood alone washing dishes, something pulled her gaze back to the photo. That same photo, over and over, it taunted her. She grabbed her laptop, opened it, zoomed in to the raw image, past Lena's smile, past the reflection of Jake's predatory stare. Behind Jake, just barely visible, was a blur, human-shaped, just out of frame. She paused. Someone else had been there, and maybe they still were. The blur in the photo haunted Elaine for days. Who else had been there? She sent the image to a former coworker, a retired crime scene analyst. He enhanced it, cleaned up the distortion, but all he could say was, there's definitely someone behind them. Not close watching. Elaine didn't need him to say more. Whoever it was, Lena saw them too. That's why she looked so tense. That smile wasn't for the camera. It was a performance. A disguise. Because maybe she knew she wouldn't be smiling much longer. 3 months before the trip flashback, Lena was sitting cross-legged on her dorm bed. A half-eaten bowl of cereal growing soggy beside her. Her roommate, Mara, stood near the window, arms crossed, watching her with quiet concern. You're doing that thing again, Mara said, with your nails. Lena looked down. Her fingertips were raw. She'd been picking them again absently, like a habit she couldn't kill. It's just stress. Jake, a long silence. I feel like I have to edit myself around him. Like, filter every word I say. Otherwise, he sulks. Mara sighed. That's not normal. He's just sensitive. He says he loves me so much it hurts. Mara rolled her eyes. That's not love, Lena. That's control in a Valentine's wrapper. Lena didn't respond, but later that night, she scribbled a note into her journal. What if love is just another kind of trap? Present-day Jake sat across from a man with wire-rimmed glasses and a voice like wet cardboard. His therapist's name was Dr. Olin. Office walls beige and blank. No plants, no color. Just 2 chairs, a desk, and a clock ticking loud enough to remind Jake how long he'd been stuck here. So, Dr. Olin said, how are you sleeping? Jake shrugged. Fine. You said last week you had trouble. The dreams, they've stopped. The lie rolled off his tongue like gum off pavement. The truth, the dreams hadn't stopped. They'd evolved. Now he saw Lena's eyes opening. Underwater, not panicked, just disappointed. For months before the trip flashback, they were at a party. Lena in a red sweater. Jake in that same worn denim jacket he never washed. He was drunk. She wasn't. She stepped out onto the balcony to get some air. He followed. I saw you talking to that guy, he muttered. What guy? Jake stared at her. Don't play dumb. I was asking for a lighter. He stepped closer. You don't even smoke. Lena turned to leave. His hand gripped her wrist not hard, but enough to pause her breath. You're not making me feel safe right now, she whispered. His face changed then, softened. I'm sorry, he said. You just don't understand what it's like. Loving you like this, it's like being afraid all the time. She didn't reply. Present Diane. His next session, Jake stared at the floor, avoided Olin's eyes. I just keep wondering, he said, what if it really was my fault? What do you mean? She asked me not to go so close to the edge, and I pushed it. I kept teasing her. Said she was scared of a little cliff. I didn't mean to. His voice cracked in all the right places. But the therapist wasn't watching his tears. He was watching Jake's left foot tapping rhythmically. Controlled. Practiced. 1 month before the trip flashback, Lena stood in front of the bathroom mirror, her phone to her ear. Mara's voice buzzed through the speaker. Just don't go, Lena. Please, go to your mum's instead. I can't. Jake would freak. That's the point. Lena paused, then lowered her voice. He told me once, if I ever left him, he didn't know what he'd do, said he might just disappear into the woods. Or worse, you need to tell someone. I am telling someone, I'm telling you. A pause. Do you think he'd actually hurt you? Lena hesitated. Then she said the most terrifying word in the world, I don't know. Present-day Elaine tracked down Mara through Lena's old texts. They met at a campus cafe neutral ground. Mara looked older than her 21 years. Maybe grief aged everyone. Maybe fear did. I told her not to go, Mara whispered, stirring a drink she wasn't drinking. She didn't want to, not really. But she kept saying it would be their reset weekend. Reset. Jake promised they'd start over, said the falls would be symbolic or something. Elaine stared down at her coffee. He planned it. I don't know that. I know she didn't trust him anymore. Elaine's voice was paper-thin. Did she ever say he hurt her? No, but she did say this. I don't think he'll let me go. Back at her apartment, Elaine opened Lena's journal again. So many entries like broken whispers, but one stood out, dated the night before the trip. I agreed. Maybe that makes me stupid, but I need to see him with clear eyes. One last time, just in case it really is love. Elaine ran her fingers over the page. Then she looked again at the enhanced photo, the figure behind them. Watching. Jake wasn't alone. In his final session that week, Dr. Olin leaned back, silent, evaluating. Jake, he said finally, do you believe you were the last person to see Lena alive? Jake's eyes snapped up. What kind of question is that? An honest one. Jake stood abruptly. We're done. As he grabbed his coat, something slipped from his Paquita keyring. One of the charms on it was a silver tag, etched with a single date. 9/27. The day Lena vanished. Jake picked it up, tucked it back into his pocket. I never forget anniversaries, he said. And walked out. Jake dreamt of the river again. Only this time, it spoke not with words, but with sound. Not gone. Not gone, the current whispered. He jolted awake, drenched in sweat, reaching for something he couldn't name. A shape in the dark. A breath behind him, but he was alone. The note had been on his door that morning. She's not gone. No envelope, no handwriting, just black block letters on printer paper. It wasn't a threat, it was worse, it was a reminder. Elaine knew that local sheriff wouldn't lift a finger unless she bled for it. So she bled time, 3 weeks of phone calls, Facebook messages, and knocking on warped trailer doors led her to Emmett Rourke, a reclusive fisherman who lived along the Cascade riverbank. He looked like a rumor come to life, beard down to his chest, skin the color of wet bark, eyes squinting through cataracts and suspicion. His shack was barely upright, a patchwork of rusted tin and blue tarp. Elaine showed him the photo. Did you see her? He stared at Lena's face. I seen someone, he said, when night of the storm, September 27th, right before the water came angry. Elaine's voice tightened where he pointed with one stained finger, by the overlook. That's not a path folks use. Too slick, but she was standing there, watching the river. Emmett paused, could have been a he. Hard to tell, hood up, but wasn't alone. Saw another figure, crouched, maybe talking. A photo. I figured college kids fooling around. Elaine leaned forward. You're sure there were 2 people? 3, he said. That's why I remember. One standing, one crouching, one watching from back near the trees. Elaine's heart thudded. 3, he nodded slowly. Didn't feel right. River gets quiet when death's near, like it's holding its breath. She took Emmett's statement straight to the police station, her jaw clenched tight enough to crack enamel. The same detective greeted her. Detective Vale, grey suit, greyer soul. I need you to listen carefully, she said, laying a printed map on his desk. That red circle is where Jake claims Lena fell. But this Manomet, Rourke says, he saw 3 people, not 2, 3. Vale sighed. Elaine, do not say her name like that. He glanced at the file. Your witness is an ex-logger with 4 DOIs and a documented hallucination disorder. He's the only one who saw anything, and you dismissed it because his life doesn't look like yours. Vale leaned back. Look, I'll be honest with you. Without a new body of evidence, we can't justify reopening a case we already closed. Elaine stood. Then I'll find the body myself. That night, Jake sat alone on his balcony, holding the note in one hand and a beer in the other. His phone buzzed. An unknown number. One new message. How's the water, Jake? Still feel her in it. His fingers trembled. He deleted it, threw the phone on the table, and lit a cigarette with shaking hands. The guilt was growing heavier. But not in the way people expected. It wasn't what he did, it was who else knew. Elaine visited Emmett again the next morning. This time, she brought him coffee, black and steaming. He took it with a nod. You believe? Me, I do, but I need more. He looked toward the water. You ever listened to a river, ma'am? Every day since September, he pointed. There's a bend upriver. Nobody hikes there to steep, but I found something tangled in driftwood a few months back. What was it? He turned toward his shack, returned with a Ziploc bag. Inside was a necklace, cheap, silver, shaped like a crescent moon. A breath left her. It was Lena's. She wore this every day, she whispered. Since her dad passed, didn't know it meant something. Thought it was just junk. Elaine stared at the trinket as if it were a map. How far a he handed her a flashlight. I'll take you. The hike to the bend wasn't marked. Emmett moved with surprising speed for someone his age, like the woods knew him. When they reached the spot, Elaine paused. The trees opened just slightly, revealing a hidden bank littered with broken branches, moss-covered logs, and decades of forgotten things. She could have ended up here, Emmett said. If she was in the water long enough. Elaine crouched beside the driftwood, brushing through it slowly. She didn't know what she was hoping for. More jewelry. A scrap of fabric. A shoe. Instead, she found a Polaroid, half-soaked, faded to people, blurry faces hard to see. But she recognized the curve of Lena's jaw, the jacket, the spot by the overlook, and someone behind her. Not Jake, a taller figure, watching, back at home. Elaine placed the necklace and photo on her kitchen table like sacred artifacts. Something was changing. The river wasn't quiet anymore. Jake lay in bed that night, eyes wide, heart racing. Another note slid under his door. This one wasn't typed, it was handwritten. You lied. So did she. Elaine dropped the photo and necklace on Detective Vale's desk like evidence in a courtroom. She was there, she said. Alive, standing with someone else. You will reopen the case. Vale didn't argue this time. That morning, a drone team was dispatched over Cascade Falls with orders to map everything, not just the marked hiking paths, but the dense forest north of the overlook. It was tedious work. Hours of data. Miles of wilderness. But then, just after 3 p.m., a drone picked up something odd. A narrow indent in the earth. Almost overgrown. A path not worn but used. The trail wound like a scar behind the falls, veiled by dense brush and twisted pine. No signage, no footsteps. Just a faint depression in the dirt, leading down a slope and into the rocks. The search team moved slowly, machetes in hand, clearing branches. 30 minutes in, they found it. A shallow cave carved into the hillside, mostly hidden behind a moss-covered boulder. Inside, it stank of damp earth, mildew, and something faintly metallic. Blood. The interior was cold. Breath turned visible. A flashlight swept across the jagged stone walls, revealing a scorched patch of ground and a heap of half-burnt debris. Someone had tried to destroy something. A forensic tech knelt, down-gloved hands sifting through ash. Fabric stuck to her fingers, melted nylon, threadbare cotton. She lifted a half-charred sports bra. Another tech found what looked like a tattered scarf, stained dark brown and stiff. But then came the worst of it. Beneath a layer of soot, in the curve of a cracked stone, a silver crescent moon necklace snapped at the chain. Identical to the one Elaine had found in the driftwood, except this one had dried blood crusted into the clasp. 2 necklaces. Vale asked aloud in the station later, flipping through the evidence photos. Elaine shook her head. Lena never took it off. She only had one. If 2 were found, that means someone planted the first one, a decoy. Elaine stared hard. Jake's alibi is crumbling, isn't it? Vale didn't answer. He just picked up the phone. Jake was brought into the station that night. He didn't ask why, he just sighed and said, "Do I need a lawyer?" That was his first mistake. They sat him in the interview room, sterile and sharp-edged, a mirror on the wall. 2 cups of water, one untouched. Detective Vale slid a photo across the table. The cave. You recognize this place? Jake glanced, shrugged. No. Vale showed him the charred clothing. Jake's fingers twitched. I don't know what that is. You were with Lena the night she disappeared. Jake nodded slowly. Yeah, I told you. We hiked. We argued. She got close to the edge. I looked away for 1 second, and you said she fell. You didn't say she ran. Double quotes. Silence. Vale leaned in. You lied, Jake. Jake's jaw tightened. You don't have proof. We have a scarf soaked in her blood, burned clothes, her necklace at the scene. Jake swallowed. That doesn't mean I was there. Vale flipped another photo across the table. The blurry Polaroid Elaine had found. Jake and Lena. And someone standing behind them, watching. Double quotes. We think that third person is the key, Vale said, but only you and Lena were supposed to be there. Right. Jake looked down at his hands. They weren't supposed to come. He whispered outside the interview room. Elaine waited in the hallway. Her fingers twisted the second necklace like rosary beads. She didn't want to see Jake, but she had to hear what he'd say. A tech approached Detective Vale with a clipboard. Forensic preliminaries. Vale scanned the page. His eyes darkened. Confirmed. He muttered. Blood on the scarf belongs to Lena. And there's something else. Elaine looked up sharply. Traces of accelerant, Vale said. Whoever tried to burn the clothes brought lighter fluid. Planned, deliberate. Elaine whispered. Murder. Back in the room, Jake ran his hands over his face. He was sweating. Pale Lena. She said she needed space, he muttered. Said maybe after the trip, we should take a break. I didn't want that. I just wanted to fix things. So you took her there, Vale said. To talk. Vale raised a brow. In a cave, with lighter fluid. I didn't bring the fluid. Then who did? Jake was silent. Vale pressed. Who else was there, Jake? Jake stared at the photo again, then whispered, She lied to me too. Outside, a cold wind brushed the window glass. The forest around Cascade Falls had gone still again. But this time, the silence didn't feel indifferent. It felt watchful, like the river, and the truth were finally ready to speak. The river thawed. In April, its surface, once frozen in grief, now rippled again with spring, melt, and indifference. Birds returned, trees bloomed. Tourists came back with phones and picnic baskets. Not realizing or caring that a girl had once disappeared here, but Elaine remembered. She always remembered. 7 months had passed since the incident. That's what people called it. Now an incident. As if Lena had stubbed her toe or dropped her phone into the river. As if grief had an expiration date. Elaine's living room was no longer a living room. It was a war room. The corkboard now covered an entire wall, cluttered with maps, timelines, interview transcripts, and printed text messages. Beneath it, a table with her laptop, a scanner, and coffee-stained notepads. She hadn't returned to work. She rarely answered the phone unless it was a tip. She'd shaved her hair short in December less to pull out, she joked to herself. Her voice had grown thin, her eyes sharper. Grief had sharpened her into a blade. Jake had moved on. He now worked part-time at a hardware store in the next town over, changed his hair, deleted his old number, but whispers still followed him, and so did his new girlfriend. Name was Tara. No last name, no social media. She showed up sometime in February and never left. People said she was quiet, pretty, but odd. She barely blinks, said Sasha, the ex-friend who used to hike with Lena. She gives me the creeps, said a cashier who saw them shopping for a shovel in the middle of a snowstorm. Still, Jake seemed happy, or maybe just numb. And maybe that's what he wanted. Meanwhile, Lena's old roommate, Mara, was coping her own way with a podcast, The Vanishing at Cascade Falls. Weekly episodes, a mix of investigative theory and raw emotion. She didn't just interview people who knew Lena. She spoke to local historians, survival experts, even grief counselors. The podcast gained traction. People listened. Not just local strangers from other countries. Reddit threads exploded. In episode 6, she cried on mic for 4 minutes. In episode 9, she said, "If you're out there, Lena, we haven't stopped looking." The breakthrough came from a completely unexpected source. A couple from Denver named Kyle and Marissa, who'd gone camping in October, 1 month after Lena vanished. They'd only just now uploaded their GoPro footage. Kyle was watching it back on a whim, prepping for their next hike, when something caught his ear. A short clip filmed near the Cascade Trail, after dark. The two of them were whispering, laughing. In the background, there was another voice, faint, female, and saying something no one expected. "Stop, please don't." Then the sound of leaves crunching, a branch breaking. Static. The footage was emailed to the police, and then leaked to Mara. She played it in episode 14. Elaine heard it while washing dishes. She dropped the plate. The police, under pressure from the podcast audience and growing media buzz, analyzed the audio. Their report was cautious, undetermined. Source: possibly environmental, possibly human. Insufficient clarity to verify. Elaine didn't care. She knew Lena's voice. She knew her daughter's panic when she heard it. She looped the audio, slowed it down, ran it through free software, fed it into AI enhancement tools. The voice wasn't just pleading. There was a second voice layered beneath. Male, growling, then silence. She printed stills from the GoPro frame by frame. One blurred shape near the tree line. Not Kyle, not Marissa. A third person. Again the same pattern. 3 shadows in the woods, 3 presences. Always 3. The town tried to move on. New posters went up for summer festivals. Cascade River tours ran their early bird specials. Kids skipped stones across the banks where Lena had been searched for in vain. Elaine watched it all with hollow eyes. "It's like she never existed," she whispered one morning, staring at the river through her windshield. But Lena had existed. She had laughed and cried and panicked and hoped, and she had died or disappeared or something in between. That night, someone sent an anonymous message to the podcast's tip line. A distorted voice, just for words. "Look inside the cave." Mara forwarded it to Elaine the next day. Elaine didn't wait for police this time. She returned to the hidden trail alone, flashlight in hand. The path hadn't changed, still narrow, veiled, unfriendly. The trees hissed in the wind like they were whispering things she wasn't meant to hear. She entered the cave. Flashlight beam swept the blackness, ash, charred remains, empty space. But then something glinted, buried near the back, tucked beneath. A stone, a small black object, coated in dirt. She knelt, brushed it off. A USB drive, taped with a strip of red duct tape. The letter L, written on it in shaky marker. Elaine drove home, like her hands weren't real. Plugged the drive into her laptop. Only one file, a video. She clicked. Static, then the sound of water. Then Lena's face, on screen, pale, crying, filming. Herself, if you're watching this, cut. Black screen. Elaine screamed. It began with rain, not the kind that kisses windows or fills gutters. This was punishing, biblical, a storm that swallowed the sky and screamed down the mountains. Hammering cascade falls with a fury that turned the river feral. For 2 days, the dam above the valley strained under pressure. Locals watched nervously as water crept higher, darker, louder. On day 3, it overflowed just slightly, enough to flush out years of mud, silt, and secrets. The current surged downriver like a wounded beast, and with it, it brought her back. It was a group of teenagers who found her. They were skipping class, smoking near the old driftwood bend. One of them spotted what looked like a sack snagged in the reeds. He waded in and screamed. The body was bloated, skin like parchment, hair tangled with leaves and algae. But the jawline familiar. The necklace, still broken at the clasp. The crescent moon. Elaine collapsed when they confirmed it. Not from surprise, but from the cruel precision of the timing. 7 months of searching, 7 months of begging, and now the river decided it. Was done holding her. The recovery site was cordoned off within the hour. Police, paramedics, and news. Vans formed a wall of motion and flashing lights. Reporters fought for space. Body found near Cascade. Breaking, vanished student recovered. Elaine stood just behind the yellow tape, coat soaked through. Fists clenched. She didn't cry, she didn't blink, she just stared at the black bag being zipped over her daughter's face, as if she were daring the world to deny her one more time. The autopsy report arrived faster than usual, as if guilt had rushed it through the system. The cause of death was not drowning, it was strangulation, deep tissue damage to the neck. Hyoid fracture, petechia in the eyes, classic signs. There was no water in Lena's lungs. She was already dead when the river took her. Jake's arrest was immediate. He didn't run, didn't fight, didn't speak. Just stared ahead as they cuffed him outside the hardware store. A single drop of rain hanging from the tip of his nose. He looked less surprised than everyone else, as if he'd known this day would come, but the story didn't end with the body, because Lena came back holding more than truth. Inside her clenched, fist miraculously preserved, was a necklace. Not her own, it was longer, thicker, a silver chain with a small locket shaped like a compass. Inside the locket, a photo of a woman, brunette, sharp eyes, red lips, not Jake, not Elaine, not anyone. The police recognized that not. Until Elaine saw the footage again, she rewound the USB drive, pausing on a frame near the end of the video. Lena, frantic, whispering into the camera. Behind her, out of focus, but visible, a woman's silhouette, and around her neck. That compass, Elaine gasped. Detective Vale entered the evidence room. Holding the necklace like a live wire. We ran the photo through facial recognition, he said to the team. Hit came back. He tossed a manila folder on the table. Terror. Jake's mysterious new girlfriend. Not just a mystery, a ghost. Real name, Danica Marsh. History of identity fraud. Connected to a cold case from 2015, the missing girl in Colorado. Case never solved. Her record vanished for years until now. Jake sat in the interrogation room, wrists chained to the table. When shown the necklace, he blinked once, then said, "I told her not to follow us." Meanwhile, the podcast exploded. Mara's emergency episode dropped at midnight. The river gave her back. Lena's last message. By dawn, it had 2 million downloads. True crime forums caught fire. Theories spun like whirlpools. Was Jake covering? For Terra, did they lure Lena together? Why was Terra even there? Who was really behind the camera in the cave? And then someone found Etan old archived image from Tara's deleted Facebook. 7 years ago, same compass necklace, same eyes, same sinister.com. Elaine sat alone in her living room. The corkboard was gone. Now just Lena's photo on the wall. The one where she stood smiling beside the waterfall, never knowing the river would one day become her tomb and her witness. Elaine whispered to it softly, Like a prayer, like a secret. You made sure they found you. You held on. You never let go. And finally, Lane allowed herself to cry. Elaine sat across from Detective Vale, a worn photograph between them. "This isn't Tara," she whispered, tracing the face in the locket. "This is Sadie." Vale nodded slowly. Full name Sadie Hale. Local, graduated high school with Lena. Attended the same college for a year before transferring out. Elaine stared at him. She was Lena's best friend. Vale's voice was ice. Until she wasn't. The media had gotten it wrong. The woman beside Jake wasn't some shadowy stranger with a fake name. She wasn't an out-of-town mystery. She had been right there all along, smiling in Lena's birthday photos. Tagged in old Instagram posts. Arm in arm with her like a sister. Sadie Hale, the other girl in Lena's world. The one no one thought to question. They found her at her aunt's house 2 towns over. She didn't resist. Just looked tired, almost relieved. "I knew this day would come," she told Detective Vale. Slipping her wrists into the cuffs without argument, at the station, she sat under harsh light, face bare of makeup. Her voice was calm, controlled. "Didn't kill her," she said. "Then why the fake name?" "Because people talk. And because of Jake." Flashback, 2 months before Lena vanished. Lena and Sadie sat in a cafe booth. Coffee untouched. "You've changed," Lena said. Sadie looked up. "You mean I don't let you walk all over me anymore?" Lena's jaw tightened. "I've never walked over you. I've protected you." Sadie laughed bitterly. "From what? Attention. You're not the same person I met freshman year." "No," Sadie said. "I grew up. You just grew bitter." That was the last time they were seen together in public. Back at the station, Vale leaned forward. "How long had you and Jake been involved?" Sadie hesitated. 3 months before the trip. "You were still friends with Lena, I thought." "They were breaking up. He said they were done. That she was manipulative, controlling. You believed him." Sadie looked away. "I wanted to." Police searched Sadie's phone. She claimed she'd wiped everything. New number, new device, but forensics recovered fragments, deleted text chains, audio snippets, emails she never expected to see again. "She's not letting go, Sadie. We can't keep sneaking. Let's just take the trip, see what happens. And worst of all, sometimes I wish she'd just disappear." Elaine listened to the transcripts with shaking hands. "She was in it," she muttered. "They planned it." But Vale wasn't convinced. "Texting hate isn't the same as murder." "But she lied about who she was. She followed me. She was..." "At the funeral, she was in grief too," Vale said carefully. "Or guilt." Sadie refused, a lawyer. "I'm not guilty," she repeated, sitting with her palms flat on the table. "Did I lie? Yes. Did I love Jake? I thought I did, but I didn't hurt Lena. Then why the necklace? I gave it to her before she died. We met, we talked. I wanted to come clean. Tell her the truth. You expect us to believe that?" "Didn't know what Jake was going to do," Sadie whispered. "He told me it would just be a fight, that he needed to scare her, that she had control over him." Vale's pen stopped mid-scratch. "He said he'd make her see, that's all. But you never went to the police after she vanished. Would they have believed me?" Her voice cracked. "You barely believe me now." At home, Elaine opened Lena's last journal entry again. The one dated 2 days before the trip. "Sadie texted me again, wants to meet, claims she needs to confess something. I almost feel sorry for her. But if it's what I think, then she's already made her choice." In a box in Sadie's aunt's attic, police found more. A folder marked Lena. Inside, old photos, printed screenshots, a torn postcard from the Waterfall, with only 2 words scrawled on the back. "She always wins." The working theory changed. Not just a love triangle, but something older, deeper. To girls raised as mirrors, one adored, the other invisible, and one boy who knew exactly how to stand between them and light the match. Jake remained silent, even as the press crucified him, even as footage emerged of him and Sadie entering the cave a week before the trip. Even when confronted with the fact that Sadie claimed Lena was still alive after their supposed fight, he said nothing, just stared into the mirror of the interrogation room like he was trying to vanish. Into it, Elaine kept her daughter's necklace around her neck now. The real one, not the one planted. Not the one clenched in a dead fist. Hers real loved, and somewhere, in a quiet evidence locker, the locket Sadie once gave Lena sat waiting. Metal, silent compass. Still pointing somewhere, still spinning, still unsettled. The room was small, windowless, and oppressively warm. Jake sat hunched in the metal chair, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles blanched. The heat came from the radiator, but it might as well have come from him. Sweat beaded along his forehead, staining the collar of his shirt. Detective Vale entered and dropped a thick folder on the table. "Jake," he said quietly, "we have the messages. The cave footage. The necklace in Lena's hand. We know Sadie was there. What we don't know what you've avoided for 7 months is what really happened that night." Jake stared at the folder, breathing hard. Vale sat down, no shouting, no threats, just silence. Until Jake cracked, it was supposed to be a confrontation, he said. His voice was hollow, as if he were reading someone else's story aloud. She wanted to scare Lena, humble her, said maybe, if she finally broke, she'd stop using people. That's how Sadie talked about her, like Lena was this puppeteer, pulling strings. Vale's pen didn't move. Jake kept going. "I believed her. I believed everything. Sadie said Lena was emotionally abusive. Controlling. She said I was better with her. That she'd been in my shadow since freshman year." He took a deep breath. Shook his head. "We met up that night after Lena and I hiked to the falls. I told her I wanted to talk. Just talk." "Did Lena know Sadie would be there?" "No. And the cave." Jake paused. "That was Sadie's idea. Said if we had a quiet place, away from the trail, Lena might actually listen. Did she?" Jake's eyes darkened. Lena didn't scare easy. Flashback, candlelight flickered in the cave. Sadie stood near the entrance, arms folded, face tight with tension. Lena stood opposite her, backpack slung over one shoulder. Jake sat between them. "This is insane," Lena said. "What is this? An intervention? A trap?" Sadie's voice was sharp. "We're just talking, really. Then why are you shaking?" "I'm shaking," Sadie said, "because I've spent years playing second to a girl who can lie through her teeth and still be called perfect. You cheated with my boyfriend. Your boyfriend didn't need convincing." Jake tried to interrupt. Lena raised a hand. "No, let her keep digging. Let's see where it leads," Sadie snapped. "Wanted you gone? That night, I wished it. But I didn't lay a hand on you." Back to present. Jake buried his face in his hands. "She pushed her," he whispered. Sadie pushed Lena. "I saw her head hit the wall. There was blood, just a little. Then Sadie panicked, told me we had to make it look like an accident." "Strangulation isn't an accident, Jake." Jake didn't look up. "I didn't mean to hurt her. I thought she was already gone. But Sadie told me to finish it to make sure she wouldn't come back." Across the station, Sadie sat in a different room. She was calm, still almost eerily collected. When confronted with Jake's confession, she didn't flinch. "I knew he'd do this," she said. "You mean confess?" "No, turn it on me." Detective Vale raised an eyebrow. "So you deny pushing Lena?" "I talked to her. Yes, I was furious. I wanted closure, but I never touched her." "Jake says otherwise," Sadie scoffed. "Jake says whatever makes Jake the victim." Flashback. In Sadie's version, Lena laughed during the confrontation. Said she wasn't surprised. That she expected this. She accused them both of cowardice, of betrayal. And then Jake snapped. He lunged at her, Sadie said. Grabbed her throat before I could stop him. I screamed. He didn't listen. By the time I pulled him off, she was gone. Back to present. Vale paced the room. "You're telling me Jake killed Lena, framed you, and then what? Asked you to start dating him again?" Sadie's face twisted. "He guilt-tripped me. Said he couldn't sleep. That if I left him, he'd confess. I didn't help him. But I didn't leave either, because I was scared of him, of what people would believe. Outside the rooms, Vale leaned against the hallway wall, hands in his pockets. 2 confessions. 2 completely opposite truths. 1 strangled girl. 1 locket, 1 cave, but still. Only 1 killer. Elaine sat in the observation room, watching the recordings. She replayed Sadie's face. Then Jake's. Then Lena's voice on the USB. If anything happens to me, don't trust what they say, either of them. Elaine closed her eyes. They both wanted something from me. Neither of them really saw me. Later that night, Vale stood by the fire pit behind the stationer, rare quiet space under the stars. Elaine approached. Coat wrapped tight. Do you believe either of them? She asked. He didn't answer right away. They both have motive. They both lied. They both stood there and watched her die. Elaine dropped a photo into the flames. An old one, Lena, Jake, and Sadie on a dock. Summer sun behind them. The fire curled the edges, blackening their faces. I don't care which one did it, Elaine said. I just want her to rest. Back in the evidence locker, 1 more item waited to be catalogued. A second USB found tucked inside the cave wall. Labeled in Lena's handwriting. If they say, I ran play this instead, there was no room left in the courthouse. The trial of Jake Weller and, by extension, Sadie Hale had become a national fixation. News anchors stood outside the building for 12 straight days. Hashtags trended. True crime podcasts scrambled for live analysis, but inside courtroom for B, the mood was less spectacle and more seance. Something haunted the air, not just grief, a deep, echoing wrongness. Elaine sat in the front row, flanked by her sister and Mara. The podcast host turned unofficial investigator. Lena's crescent necklace hung around her neck like armor. She didn't speak to the cameras. She didn't blink when Jake was led in, wearing the grey suit his lawyer thought might make him look less dangerous. He looked smaller now, like guilt had eaten part of him, but his eyes, still sharp, still defensive, still Jake. Prosecution opened with footage. The final USB, Lena's last video the jury watched. Breath held as her face filled the monitor. Her voice was trembling but clear. If they say I left, ran, or snapped I didn't, I was scared. Of both of them, Sadie kept texting me to meet up. Jake said he needed to clear the air. It didn't feel right. If you're watching this, they didn't let me go. The court went dead silent. The testimonies followed like dominoes falling in slow motion. Mara, the roommate, described emotional manipulation, backhanded comments, and nights when Lena would cry silently in her room after fighting with Jake. She thought it was love, she said, but it wasn't, it was control. Gaslighting, he'd make her apologize even when he messed up. Dr. Carlisle, a forensic psychiatrist, analyzed Jake's behavior across 6 years of school records, therapy notes, and social media. Narcissistic tendencies, a deep fear of abandonment, a need to dominate intimate relationships, masked by performative charm. When threatened, he doesn't snap, he strategizes. Jake's defense team objected, but the judge let it stand. Then came Sadie. She was called as a witness under a limited immunity deal. She entered the courtroom pale, fragile, dressed in black, like she was mourning someone else's soul. She didn't look at Jake. When asked about her journal, she nodded slowly. Yes, the entries are mine. Vale placed it on the table, worn, dog-eared, pages, underlined, words, circled in red. She was asked to read the line that had already gone viral. If she disappears, he promised we'd be free. Sadie exhaled, closed her eyes, and read it, aloud, clear, on cross-examination. The defense tried to dismantle her. You were jealous. Yes, you hated Lena. No, I wanted to hate her. I couldn't. You wanted Jake. Sadie hesitated. Not after what he did, you could have stopped it. Her voice cracked. I tried. Outside, the public war raged. Was Sadie a victim, manipulated into silence, or a co-conspirator hiding behind performance? Polls were split. Op-eds clashed, but inside the courtroom, Elaine felt one truth hold. They both broke. Lena.1 with fists. 1 with silence. The journal held more than one damning sentence it revealed. A pattern he doesn't like when I wear lipstick. She said I should get over myself. He once told me she was prettier when she was sad. The jury shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't just murder, it was erosion, a long, slow disappearance of a girl before her. Body vanished. Jake never testified. His lawyer advised against it, but the prosecution read his texts anyway. She always wins. Let's see how she likes being afraid for once. After this, we start clean, just you and me. The courtroom pulsed with disbelief. Elaine refused to cry in court. Not when Lena's final words were used like daggers. Not when Jake glanced at her like he still had the right dot. Not even when the defense argued emotional provocation and mental health collapse. As mitigating factors, she just stared at the jury. 12 strangers, who now held her daughter's soul in their hands. The closing arguments were less about law, more about humanity. The prosecutor didn't beg. She simply played Lena's video again. If you're watching this, they didn't let me go. As the jury filed out to deliberate, Elaine finally stood. Walked out the side door, no cameras, no statements. She sat under an old oak tree outside the courthouse, the same one Lena had climbed as a child when she'd followed her to work one summer. A leaf fell into her lap. She didn't brush it away. That night, Mara's podcast dropped another bonus episode, Trial of Shadows, Day 12. She ended it with a single line. The truth doesn't scream, it whispers. Through journals, through bruises, through girls we almost saved. The courtroom was silent when the verdict was read. Guilty, second-degree murder. Jake didn't flinch. Not when the words landed. Not when the judge asked if he understood. Not even when his mother sobbed from the third bench behind the defense table. Elaine sat perfectly still. She didn't feel triumphant. She felt empty, like justice was a word someone had said too many times to mean anything anymore. The gavel came down. Jake was escorted out. Lena didn't come back. Sadie was released that afternoon. The media swarmed her. Some called her a survivor. Others, an accomplice. Some didn't call her anything, they just stared. She said nothing as cameras flashed. Her eyes were vacant, her hands trembled. When she passed Elaine in the hallway, she paused just for a second. Their eyes met. Elaine gave no words. Just a single, exhausted nod. Sadie looked like she wanted to speak, but didn't. She walked into a life that would never again belong to her. Outside news anchors reported live, a final episode of Mara's podcast. Dropped that evening. Justice was complicated. Lena was not. She was a girl who loved rivers and strawberries and overused M-dashes. She deserved better friends. She deserved a safer love. She deserved a future. What the jury gave us was accountability. What Elaine gave us was strength. 3 weeks later, Elaine returned to Cascade Falls. The leaves were golden now. The trees had turned into flames. The river, quieter than it had been in months, gurgled softly beneath the stone bridge where Lena once stood for that final photo. Elaine brought no cameras, no detectives, no press. Just a wooden urn in her lap and a folded piece of paper in her pocket. She found a flat boulder near the water's edge and sat. For a long while, she said nothing, only the river spoke. Then she opened the urn. The ashes were fine, pale grey, almost silver in the sun. She reached in and let a handful fall into the water. The particles danced across the surface, briefly suspended before vanishing into the current. Go where they couldn't, she whispered. More ashes followed. Elaine wasn't religious, but she believed in release, and this was hers. After the last of Lena was gone, she unfolded the paper, read the words aloud. To every mother trust, the silence more than the noise. Watch how their smile dims when certain names are spoken. Listen to the pauses between their words. That's where the truth hides. Lena never screamed. She whispered, and I wasn't listening. She folded the page again and set it on the rock, pinned beneath a small stone. Then she stood, the wind tugged at her coat. The river moved on, and so, finally, did Elaine back in town. She agreed to one last press conference. Not for justice, not for vengeance, but for peace. She stood at the same podium where the sheriff had once said no foul play suspected, only this time, the air felt heavier. More honest. Elaine looked at the reporters, her face lined with months of grief and war. My daughter was not perfect, she said, but she was good, and she didn't deserve to vanish without meaning. She held up a photo Lena on the dock at 10 years old, feet dangling, smiling with ice cream on her chin. This is the Lena I want remembered. Not the victim. Not the girl from the cave. Just this one. The cameras clicked. She paused, then delivered her final words. Don't ignore the small silences. That's where daughters go to disappear. She stepped back. The applause wasn't loud, but it was real. Later that evening, she passed by a coffee shop window. Inside, a teenage couple was laughing, sharing earbuds. Oblivious to the world, Elaine smiled faintly. Not in envy, but in hope, maybe. Someone in that couple would remember Lena, or her mother, or that line about silences. Maybe it would save someone. The next morning, the river flooded again, but this time, it gave nothing back, and took no one with it. The trees had grown back, stronger, thicker, wilder. Nature didn't grieve. It simply resumed. And so did the river, its surface smooth, its voice soft, like it had never held a body, never swallowed a girl whole, never whispered secrets back to the surface. But she remembered. Mara had returned. Older, wiser, still carrying the weight of Lena's story like a bruise that never quite faded. She set her recording equipment down gently on the rocks near the base of Cascade Falls, the same spot where it all started. A single mic, a handheld recorder, and a laptop blinking its red live indicator. This, she said softly, is my final episode of The Vanishing at Cascade Falls. The podcast had become legend. It started as a one-room, one-mic projector way for Mara to cope with the loss of her best friend. Now, it had a cult following. Millions of listeners. Entire forums, fan theories. Netflix had called 3 times, but she had never returned to the falls. Until now, and she had never stopped asking one question. Why did Lena really die? The trial had ended years ago. Jake was still in prison, parole denied twice. Sadie had vanished into a different kind of exile. No interviews, no memoirs, no redemption arc. Elaine passed away peacefully in her sleep last spring. Her obituary simply read, she loved rivers, strawberries, and her daughter. In that order, Mara took a deep breath. I've spent years piecing together fragments, confessions, texts, interviews, timelines, but there was always something that didn't sit right. She glanced up at the waterfall, the same soft roar, the same mist that touched her face like ghost fingers. Not just the how, but the who. She paused the recording, stared at her phone, and opened the folder she had never touched. Elaine had mailed it before she died. A padded envelope marked, for your last episode. If you still care to know. Inside, Lena's cracked phone, still password protected, until. Now, it wasn't hard to guess. Mara had seen Lena said it 100 times, 1974. The year Elaine was born. The screen lit up, and the final unheard voicemail popped into view. Date, 1 day before Lena died. Sender, unknown number. Length, 012. Mara stared at it, pressed play. At first nothing, just static. Then a voice. Male, but not Jake, she knows. She read the files. If she talks, a pause. Then, she should have never found out. Click, end of message. Mara sat frozen. The wind picked up slightly, tugging at the mic cable, rustling the leaves. She played the message again, same voice. Same line, not Jake, someone else. Mara stared into the waterfall. Her pulse was a drumbeat. Now who else was there? Who was he? What files? What didn't Lena survive? She opened her laptop and hit record again. This is Mara Hale, she said, voice trembling slightly. And I just found something. She played the voicemail into the mic, let it loop twice, then silence. Then, I've interviewed every person connected to this case, except one. She paused, then said it. Detective Liam Vale. It clicked. The late-night meetings he insisted on. The notes he never shared. The overprotective way he'd shielded evidence from the press. The fishing license. Registered near the cave. The third person the fisherman saw. No one had ever confirmed who that was, because no one asked. Not then, but Lena had. Flashback. A photo from Lena's camera. Roll. Zoomed in. Blurry, but visible. A truck in the background, parked near the ranger gate. License plate starting in LV-9. Elaine once dismissed it. But now, Mara's voice steadied. If you've followed this podcast since the beginning, you know I promised to end this story with truth. She pressed her palm to the cracked screen of Lena's phone instead. I'm ending it with another secret. The sky had begun to darken, the sun dipping low behind the cliff. Mara stood, wrapped her recorder in her scarf. Then, almost as an afterthought, she whispered, Lena, I think you knew. She turned to leave, but just before the path curved out of view, she looked back at the water one last time. A small shimmer beneath the current caught her eye. Nothing large, just a flicker, like something shining or watching. She walked away. The falls kept falling. And the river kept its secrets podcast, ultra transcript, as aired 2 days later. You've heard the voicemail. You've followed every thread. And yet, here we are, again at the edge of the waterfall, staring into a mystery that refuses to be solved. She should have never found out. That's the line. Not of guilt, but of fear. So maybe the question isn't who killed Lena. Maybe it's, what did she know that was worth killing for? This is Mara Hale. Thank you for listening. And if you ever find yourself near Cascade Falls, listen closely. Still water runs deep.